Behind me is one of the largest plastic kit we do of the famous King Tiger tank. This retails for around about £250 at Tiger Hobbies. We're out of stock at the moment, but we've got more coming in January. Now, this tank is a bit maligned, even by lovers of German tanks, called wearables, these who worship the superiority of German tactics and equipment. But actually, it was actually quite a good tank. I've recently read a book called Panzer Commander about a young German soldier joining the German army in 1941, going through his training and then becoming a potential officer and then commissioned as an officer, and he gets to command these Tigers. He's also in the same unit, which is Schwerabteilung 503, that the top German tank ace of the war, who wasn't Waffen-SS, like many people thought, was actually a German army man called Kurt Nispel. It's spelled K-N-I-S-P-E-L, but it's pronounced Nispel. And he was one of the great exponents of this King Tiger, destroying, I think, 169 enemy tanks as gunner and tank commander, mainly on the King Tiger. Now, it's all in purpose a modern tank. It's 70 tons. It's got a massive high velocity L43 German 88mm gun. It's got, automotively, it's got driving systems that British tankers didn't get till something like Challenger 2. You don't drive this like a bulldozer with tillers, you drive it with power-assisted steering wheel. It's also got massive wide tracks. Yes, it's 70 tons, but those big wide tracks help dissipate the weight. I'm just going to show you a couple of small 1/72 scale models you've seen throughout my talk on the Battle of Bulge. So we've got a King Tiger and we've got a British Comet. These are typical British tank. It's a late war British tank based on the Cromwell, it's an upgraded Cromwell. And this is the King Tiger. And as you can see, the width of the tracks is exactly the same scale, they're both 72nd scale. As you can see, this is a 30-ton tank, but you can see it's got tiny tracks. With this is a 70-ton tank, and it's got massive wide track. So these massive wide tracks help dissipate the weight on the ground. This 70-ton tank can actually cross ground that this tank cannot. And I think that's lost on a lot of modern designers of tanks, and I think in Ukraine a lot of tanks are suffering because they're basically getting bogged down on the ground. If you look at the tracks, they're actually quite thin. What they need is vehicles with big wide tracks. What lets this tank down though is its engine. Now down there you can see an early version of the Tiger, Tiger 1, and that's got the same 650 horsepower engine as Tiger 2. Now Tiger 1 weighs about 50 tons, this thing weighs nearly 70 tons. So 650 horsepower is going to have a lot harder time moving 70 tons as it is 50 tons. If this tank had had, say, an 800 or 900 horsepower engine, this would have been almost unstoppable. Also, I talked earlier about that Schwerabteilung 503. What made them very good, they had a really good engineer, some German Obersergeant, who really took care of these vehicles. And he did what we call today preventative maintenance. He was also in these things, making sure that the lubricants and oils were topped up, make sure there's no seals busted. As a result, their tanks performed reasonably well and were quite reliable. And it also showed what they could do with this big beast. The Germans used a lot of trains to move the vehicles on, because in Europe they're not having to go by sea anyway, so the trains can move their vehicles quite readily. And how they operated on trains with these vehicles is quite remarkable, getting them to the railheads and getting them off and on quite quickly. So yes, it's a little bit over-engineered. Yes, it wasn't reliable in some units, but if you met this thing towards the end of the war when the Germans were in a defensive mode, this thing could smoke you out from 3,000 metres. You knew you were in trouble. Its arm, as you can see, is sloped, extremely thick, so it'd have to be a real good shot to kill one of these. But, as you say, the Germans produce about 750 King Tigers. Over there we've got one of our Sherman models in 16 scale. Well, the Americans produce 55,000 Shermans, and the Soviet Union 60,000 T-34s. So no matter how many Tigers the Germans built, no matter how good they were, Panthers and Jagdpanthers, I'm afraid they were they were not going to win that war. So let's have a look at some of the other models we've got at Tiger Hobbies. Yes, so we're talking about the Battle of Bulge, the biggest battle in US Army history. So I thought I'd bring along some of our biggest model tanks. Now these are what you call 1/16 scale. So these little ones here are 1/72 or war game scale. Some of the medium-sized ones down here are in the popular 1/35 scale. But this 16th is one of our fastest growing scales. In fact, the tanks at the back here are by Andy's Hobby Headquarters, which is a USA-based company, and we are proud to be their UK distributor. And we're actually selling more of these big 16 scale tanks I am selling of the 35th scale tanks. For instance, a good 35th scale tank, I'm now selling maybe 300 to 400 tanks. On a good 16 scale model, for instance, the German Tiger in the Andy's Hobby Headquarters, we sold close to 750. And these things are retailing at around about between 150 to 170 for the Tiger, which actually compared to something like this at 250, 300 is remarkable good value. But this thing here, the Trumpeter one that we retail, this is full interior detail. You build this from the guts out. You build the suspension, the engine, the running gear and torsion bar suspension, all the internals of the artillery and driver's positions and radios. So this thing is an incredible model. You're not going to build this in an afternoon. This is something like a year's project to build. So if you're interested in buying models from Tiger Hobbies, especially our 16 scale range, then please go to Tiger Hobbies, www.tigerhobbies.co.uk, and look for 1/16, and you'll find a lot of these new 16 scale models, and we've got quite a few now. We've got the Shermans, we've got the M8 armoured car, the British M10 Achilles, we've got the Jeep, which is very, very popular. We've got early war Panzer IIs, and we've got more and more Allied stuff coming as well, because the early models in this scale were mainly German, but now we go more on Allies, and we've actually got a really nice Bren gun carrier or universal carrier. In fact, so popular, I bought about 500 in, and I sold it in 48 hours. So by the time this video goes out, our restocks of the universal or Bren gun carrier will be back in stock at Tiger Hobbies. So once again, thank you very much for taking your time to listen to this Tiger Hobbies video about the Battle of the Bulge.